And roll rugby, and what a weekend it's been of Rugby Championship rugby this weekend, guys. For me, I absolutely loved it. Obviously, being a Springbok, it was a great weekend for the Springboks. Quite a shocker for the All Blacks, but we'll go through both games. Today's one, in this one, we will be talking about the Springboks versus the Wallabies. And let me just start, before we start reacting to the highlights, to say that the stadium was packed. Suncorp Stadium was packed to the brim, sold out. Loads of South African supporters there as well. And just have a look at the stadium, how amazing it looked.
Rugby Championship, and we have a blockbuster to get us started with the Wallabies hosting.
And just so that you know, the Springboks had a very late change in the team. They actually replaced RG Steinman. He had an injury and a late replacement, and a very interesting move by the Springboks, not wanting to change that 6-2 split. And basically all they did is they brought Pieter-Steph du Toit, which often plays flanker, as we know. We haven't really seen him play lock, but actually played lock right through his career as well. And slotting him into that lock position, and then bringing Ben Jason Dixon off of the bench, giving him opportunity. So you had Ulrich Lowe at 8, and we also had at 7 then Ben Jason Dixon getting a start. Both new starters in that Lucy trio, and it paid off pretty well for them, because a guy like Pieter-Steph du Toit you just want to have on the field. But a great move, and again the Springboks just showing that versatility in their players at the moment, and that they're using players as utility. But let's get into the first big highlight of the game.
Coming here. They transfer it back to the front, and they are driving hard with purpose.
I mean, that was just such a great move. I was just from the start, from the start it was just a crazy game. Immediately the Springboks just seemed on. They seemed to have an urgency to them. They were playing direct. They were playing the game very fast. Immediately wanting to play that faster game, wanting to rather play the offload and the tackle rather than just going for the contact all the time. So the ball was moving quite a bit. And first line out, and the most phenomenal move. I've not seen anything like this in World Rugby. You see Ben Jason Dixon going up at the back, and I think it really fooled the Wallabies, because everyone thought they're going to be taking the ball in the back of the line out. So obviously all the defense moved towards the back of the line off, popping it back to Eben Etzebeth. How clever. A perfect handling by everyone. Etzebeth gets it, and immediately the rolling ball momentum shifts to the front and totally fooling the Wallabies, and rolling ball goes through. Springboks on the board, 10 minutes in. Sasha Mangazulu puts it through, and it's 7-0 straight away. Now let me just say, we're moving on with the highlights. Obviously, these are just the highlights, so I'll give you a little bit of what I saw and what transpired in the game. This is on 18 minutes, the next highlight we will be looking at. But I want to talk a little bit about Sasha Mangazulu. This guy's 22 years old. He's been brought into the team just for his X factor. He does things which I have not seen any other fly-off do for the Springboks before. Yes, Pollard to an extent does similar things, but Feinberg Magazulu, to me, is just so versatile. You never know what the player is going to do. And his ability to know when it's on and when not, and to create opportunities out of something where there sometimes is nothing on. And he does that even the Springboks running out of their own half. Like I've said before, he reminds me a lot of the way that the All Blacks will just play it sometimes and run it. Muhanga is a very good example of that. And Sasha Feinberg Magazulu, in this instance, doing it very well. He didn't have the best of starts. He's had great games. He's played 5 tests already, or 4 tests. I think this is the 5th test for the Springboks. But he's always come off the bench. He's had great impact. And he's usually not made that much mistakes. In this game, been a bit disappointing at the start. He really looked rattled. He didn't look comfortable in himself right at the start of the game. Obviously a big occasion for him. It's very different for him being the starting player, and the Springboks saying we're betting on you. And at the start I felt, hold on, this guy's a bit nervous. He doesn't seem to be the Sasha Feinberg Mangazulu which I've seen, and missing some kicks, not really running at one point, running into Kobus Reinach, the scrum off when they went up for the ball. Very kind of silly, running into his own players' rib cage and kind of hurting Kobus Reinach. Kobus Reinach luckily getting off up from that. But generally, he looked a little bit rattled. And then I think from this moment, around the 18th minute, he does something phenomenal. You could see it really build his confidence. And from there, he started playing more of the type of game we used to. Just watch this and see. Just watch while he's running. And you could see he had the players all guessing the back line because it seemed like he was going to kick the ball. And the next thing, deciding, no, this is on, I'm going to run it. And creating a great opportunity. And I think if Willie Leroux actually passed that ball out to Colby, this would have been a try. But check this out. Now, I really enjoyed Kobus Reinach in this game. I like his distributing abilities and how fast he keeps the game. Something that Faf de Klerk, the old way the Springboks have played in previous years before this year started, was very much slow the game down. What I have to say, take my hat off to Rassie Erasmus, starting to pick the right guys this year, right through from his coaching team, deciding, I'm going to start playing what World Rugby wants. Because World Rugby is pushing a faster game. The rules are pushing a faster game. And Rassie Erasmus, what I really have to say, respect to the guy, is he hasn't gone and said, no, I will keep playing my own game. No, he's evolved the game. He said, okay, Springboks, let's start doing it. Let's show them we can play a running type game. Because I think he always knew Springboks have got all the depth in the world. They just need to start playing the game, a faster game. And it's really going to make a lot more of the players shine. But with that, it also comes at the cost of certain players. A guy like Faf de Klerk, he is good. Don't get me wrong. He can also play a fast game. He's shown that when he plays for the Sales Sharks, he can play a faster game. And I think he'll get his opportunity to come back in. But it was just good to see Kobus Reinach really be able to shine. He moves the ball so quickly. And something that the Springboks are doing so much better this year. It took them a while, guys. I've got to say, this game against the Wallabies, it really started coming together for them, where their fast ball type play has worked. And that's quite often, I watched one scene where Oxenchair, usually he got a ball and I thought, okay, Oxenchair is going to smash this up. And as it looked like he was going to smash it up, he just gives a pop pass out. And that kind of thing I never saw before from the Springboks. They were always going for the contact, but that slows the ball down. Now, I'm not saying they don't do that still. They're still very directional. They run straight. But their decisions to go for the contact is a lot less. So when they decide, okay, it's time to build a little bit on phases, they will go for the contact for a few times. But as soon as there's any inclination that it's on to just move the ball, they move it. And it's something they struggled with this year, because it's a thing that all the players need to learn. When do you keep the ball alive and just pass it out? And when do you go for the contact? And that is a skill that you have to learn. And the Springboks have at times this year not been getting it right, but in this game getting it right quite often against the Wallabies. And I mean, they really kind of dominated this first half. The Wallabies didn't know what was hitting them because of the pace of the game that Springboks put onto them. And why the pace of this game was so fast, it was exactly that. They were just moving the ball through their hands and really tiring out the Wallabies generally in this game. And the Wallabies were totally starved of possession because the Springboks' handling was great and they were moving the ball all over the park. This try is a good example.
Advantage over for the knock. Okay. Can Australia hold firm once more? Detroit at pace. Detroit is over.
Now, I want to just show you this try again. I think the world's sleeping a bit. World Rugby is sleeping a bit on what the Springboks is doing, and they might not be preparing for the Springboks in the new way. They have to prepare for the Springboks. They're still preparing for the Springboks in a contact type of way, thinking the Springboks are just going to smash it up. And the All Blacks will have to definitely look at that as well, because the Springboks don't just smash it up anymore. They quite often, you think, okay, they're going to play it to that first player, first receiver, and the first receiver will just go in for the second phase. But they don't. That first receiver just gets the ball and pops it back to, a Mongazulu at the back running at space and creating that depth for the Springboks to score great tries. And I got to say, the Wallabies backline there was a lot of questions being asked from that backline's defense. They just didn't know what hit him, to be honest. Let's just look at this one again. Now watch the decoy, and I think all the Wallabies thought that, you know, this is going to just be another phase crash up, and the next thing the Springboks play it back, and it results in a great try for Pieter-Steph du Toit, and well deserved by Pieter-Steph du Toit, by the way. This guy goes in, he goes and plays lock, and he plays a perfect game, and it still seems like he's a loose forward on the field. You know, his defense was outstanding in this game again. You know, the guy was bloody halfway through the game, but he was playing such an amazing game again, and this guy is just in great form again. Now, around 30 minutes into the game, 14-0 ahead for the Springboks. The Wallabies really don't know what's hitting them. Wallabies almost no possession this first 30 minutes of the game. They really couldn't get their hands on the ball. It was just Springboks all the time. They had no answers. The few opportunities where the Wallabies did get the ball, the Springboks was smothering them on the defense. It was like the Springboks was just too quick for them on their defense. It seemed like the Wallabies was getting no depth to play with the ball, and the Springboks, you know, that kind of press defense, but then someone shooting out and really spoiling the ball seemed to be working very, very well. And then we get this floater pass through to Kurtley Arendse. Kurtley Arendse does Kurtley Arendse type stuff, you know. He just needs an inclination of a little bit of a space, and he was almost away for a try. He gets tackled. Kobus Reinach comes to clean, and Kellaway and some of the other Wallabies players somehow flip Kobus Reinach around, lift his head, legs up, and kind of almost like a WWE kind of wrestling move, drops him down on his head. Can't do that. And let me tell you, most referees would have given a red card for that. I was very surprised to see Kellaway only getting a yellow at the end of the day. Let's check this out.
Over the top, danger, big time danger here. And get a mark for me on that one, please. Oh, you happy? Okay, ready when you are, Ben.
Now, talking about it, Kurtley Arendse. Now, let me just say, like, the guy's elusive. Like Kurtley Arendse, you know, if I look at Cheslin Colby, great finisher, also a great step to him, but it's almost sometimes like Kurtley Arendse is just a little bit more agile. You know, from this next moment was quite amazing from Kurtley, and Kurtley just always finds a way to find a try line, you know, white line fever, but his ability to step people with the pace that he's got. I mean, he scored this try pretty much from a Springbok blunder. You know, this is something that it comes back also to the Wallabies defense. The Wallabies should have never allowed this try. I know Kurtley Arendse is not easy to tackle, but, you know, a blunder, the ball bounces back. Kurtley Arendse gets it, and with loads of time, but loads of players in front of him, you'd think nothing is on. He finds a way. He kind of, you know, weaves to the left and the right and steps, and just finds his way right through about 4 or 5 defenders. You almost see no one really going for the tackle or even touching him. And, you know, the Wallabies have got to ask questions for themselves. How do you concede tries like this? Because it's not that it was easy, because it is a very talented player that scores this try. Most players would not have been able to do this in this scenario. They would have been tackled just because of their size and just not having the abilities that this guy's got. But still, someone should have tackled him. Just have a look at this.
And it's another try for Kurtley Arendse.
So guys, we go into halftime. I mean, 21-0 for the Springboks, and it was all Springboks. Now, we got to put this all in perspective. The last 3 games that the Springboks played against Australia, they lost. And especially if they play Australia in Australia, they've had a terrible record. I mean, they had some terrible losses in Australia, and I think really the Springboks from the start, when they walked on that field, you could see that they had a point to prove. And as long as the Springboks play with a point to prove, they are a different team. You can see when they look like they're on fire, and they look like they're going to give a really great performance today, and you can feel that urgency with the Springboks. And I felt that today. It almost felt like a World Cup game. From the kick-off, they were just fired up. They were very fast on the ball. They were tackling like machines. Like everyone was tackling, and great defense, and the speed of the ball and the way they were moving the ball, where they were taking the contact, they were making meters. Someone like Elrich Lowe, his first game starting, great game from Elrich Lowe. Ben Jason Dixon for first start, not bad, but also getting some carries. But Elrich Lowe, guys, this guy, he just played like he plays when he plays in a Bulls jersey. He's been phenomenal this year in the URC, and really just now transitioning into that Springbok jersey. And I think guys like a Marco van Staden and guys like a Jasper Wiese, they're now going to struggle to start making it to this team, because they have been riding on their names for quite a while. They've just been there, done what they have to do, but nothing phenomenal from these players. And now these younger guys coming in, eventually now Rassie start playing them as they're building to the next World Cup, because they were kind of kept out just because of the build-up to the 2023 World Cup. But now all these new guys in and having great performances. So, I mean, going into halftime, really you felt that the Springboks had a lot of fire. The Wallabies didn't know what hit them. They had almost no possession. They weren't too great at their defense. The few times that they had the opportunity to play with the ball, the Wallabies, they couldn't do much because the defense was so good. And the one thing that the Wallabies has had an issue with ongoing for years and years, as long as I can know. Like, I think the last 4 or 5 years watching rugby, under Dave Rennie, now again, the while under Eddie Jones, now again with Joe Schmidt, which I thought would get better. The Wallabies discipline. They have, if you go look at the amount of penalties that the Wallabies concede per game in these big test matches, it's quite shocking. And again, their discipline just went out the door. And that's why the scoreline pretty much showed it, 21-0. And going to the second half, my only concern was, because the Springboks usually have a stronger second half than first half, that's usually the Springboks patterns in how they play. They seem to build up to that second half, you know, the bomb squad coming on, all of that. It just felt like they took their foot off the gas pedal a bit to really blow it out even further than what they did in the end. Nevertheless, I don't want to be a spoiler if you haven't watched these highlights, but it could have been much more of a blowout even if the Springboks did come with the same intensity as the first half. I did feel the second half there was a bit, you know, of that intensity that wasn't there from the first half. But, you know, overall still a great performance. But let's start the second half and see what happened.
They just keep thundering forward.
Now, one thing, by this point, Grant Williams had come on, and one thing that I like about Grant Williams, his awareness. If you watch him, he's always looking around the rucks, kind of wanting to peel around, seeing where there's space, small little passes, offloads, that kind of thing he does very well. But what you'd see from the Springboks, they used to play in pods of 3, so they always have 3 guys that 2 can clean, and that's the way they used to run their lines. Where now quite often you'll see them, they run in 2s quite more often and spread themselves out a bit more. It does mean they don't get as much over the advantage line as they usually do. But I mean, still, you know, very strong on their legs and still playing forward. It's one thing that I like about the Springboks, even though they're starting to play the whole offload game very much better and keeping the ball alive, they still, when they take the contact, they make the meters and they clean. There's always guys to clean. Even if there's only 2 guys, one takes the impact, there's always a guy to clean up straight away, and not far behind him, another guy coming through to assist if he needs to. But definitely the Springboks playing much more a spread out game when it comes to their forwards. And, you know, that speeds up the game with less guys in the pods and cleaning the ball quickly and then peeling off and eventually finding the space. And let's have a look at this try.
And they crash over for their 4th try.
And guess who goes through? None other than the machine, Kwagga Smith. And Kwagga again had a great game. Another man that, you know, the impact that guy makes when he comes onto the field. The Springboks not really being able to do the whole bomb squad thing where they bring everyone in on the same time, just due to injuries. But that's expected a lot of the times in these Rugby Championship games, because it's just such physical games that quite often they won't be able to use that, bomb squad effect where everyone can come on. But whomever they have, by the time they want to bring them on, they're still there to be used. But Kwacha had to come on quite early and immediately in the mix and scores a great try. Now here again, the next try, something that we didn't always see from the Springboks in the last, say, 4 years, even 8 years if you want to say, building up to the last 2 World Cups, is them really running as much from their own half. And yeah, I mean, pretty much almost from their own 22, pretty much running a try in. And it just shows you again the confidence that they're starting to build with this type running rugby and moving the ball. And it is very refreshing for a Springbok supporter to see this, that they're starting to mix up this game where they're starting now to become a running team as well. And that's got to put the world of rugby on notice. And the only reason why I'm saying this, you'll say, what makes them more special than any other team playing running rugby? Well, guys, it's depth. They have got so much versatility and so many players in positions to bring on second half with fresh legs. And if they start getting this right, where they play still a physical game, but not just this dominant physical game and set piece game, but also a running game, they kind of complete as a rugby team. And they seem to be starting to find this new way of playing very quickly now and adopting to it very well. Considering, the Wallabies has not been that bad. They've not had a great, obviously they're not the greatest. They coming off of last year's World Cup. But with Joe Smith, they've been looking promising against Wales, against Georgia, and literally blown out of the water in this game. You really start seeing that. And just look at this break of Jesse Creel, then sending away none other again than Kurtley Orange. I'm sure this guy's going to be, if he keeps going like this, he will overtake Colby the way he's going now. And he could probably be chasing Brian Abena if he just keeps going like this. It's just amazing.
Larue heads in his direction out. Creel straightening up. Creel gets through. Jesse Creel looking for Larue. It goes to Aronsa, being real hot. And it's 33.
I mean, the commentator was saying they're running real hot. And I thought to myself, you know what? I've been listening to Wallaby commentators and they would usually try and really hype their own team. And this game, they really didn't even have words, They just had praise for the Springboks because they were really blowing the Wallabies out of the water. I'd say not the whole game because the Springboks fell off at the end a bit due to discipline and stuff. But I'd say that first 60 to 65 minutes of the game was just outstanding from the Springboks. And talking about that 67 minutes in, most of the bomb squad is on already. Excited seeing guys like Malcolm Marx coming on. And, just one of those head collisions, guys. It was his mistake. He didn't drop his body enough. No excuses. At the end, they did make the decision to go for yellow. And the reason being the mitigation that he was dropping. But he was dropping too slowly. Hits Valentini in the face and a red card. And this is where the Springboks kind of spiral a bit when it comes to the yellow cards and just their discipline in general. And they could have really won this game by about another 15 points, if they really didn't spiral out of control like this. And this really gave Australia a start getting some momentum because now they have opportunities. They're playing against 14 men. They started getting some phases. You could see, okay, maybe Australia is going to use this opportunity due to the yellow card. I mean, they have the extra man. And then, guys, the one guy that I'm talking about here, Marco van Staden, usually just does what he needs to on the field. Then you got guys that's been around for a while and you ask yourself, how do you want to keep your position when you got one yellow card? To be disciplined, because if you're not disciplined, then you give away another yellow. Suddenly you sit now with only 13 men. Let's check this out.
22. Salakai Lotto. McDermott.
Well, with that said, the Wallabies then did hold on to possession, worked through some phases and broke the line at times. And then eventually in the 75 minute, they really had to be honest, work really, really hard to eventually, with only 13 men from the Springboks, to eventually get the opportunity, and they run this try in. Now, probably the right guy to score for Australia, Pasami. I mean, the battle between him and Dilalindi at times and the tackles that those two guys made on each other was amazing. But, you know, Delalendi standing up to him very well. Pasami standing up to Delalendi. And then, yeah, right at the end, the Wallabies still wanting to run it. Knock on and end of game, guys. And what a game from the Springboks in the end. I mean, 33-7 with a bonus points. First game, making a huge statement. Telling the other teams, we're here to play. We're here to play running rugby, which you didn't expect us to do. And they, you know, I've been saying since the start of this year, these guys are a different team this year. Rassie Erasmus brought in Tony Brown to get that offload game going and that backline running type game going. He's shown his intentions that he wants to start going with the new rules, being very much speeding up the game. He's shown his intentions with his selections. He's been great this year. Rassie Erasmus don't put a foot wrong, and people don't like it when people make this big fuss out of Rassie Erasmus. Why are you making this big fuss out of one coach? Well, it's because you look at where the Springboks was, what he's done with them to win 2 World Cups. And again, he doesn't run out of initiative. This year he said, hold on, I'll show you guys. You just think we just forward packed up team, set piece team. We want to slow the ball down. We Springboks spoil rugby because they slow the game down. We don't like your style of play, is what I've heard, guys. This is the stuff that I've heard over the years being a Springbok. And he says, okay, let's change it up. Because I believe with the depth and the players we have, we can play any type of game. He's done it. It's taken these players a while to start adopting this new style of play. But definitely now. They play a very similar game now to what the Australians want to play, what the All Blacks play. You know, is that fast type of game. So it's going to be interesting when they come up against the likes of like Argentina that still plays more of a tight type of game. But I think what's so awesome about these Springboks is it's ingrained for them to play the old, you know, forward pack phase type game. So they can switch it up at any time. But I don't think we'll ever see the Springboks play that kind of old style phase play where they slow the ball down a lot, because this is starting to complement the players. It really makes this backline shine. You even see some of the forwards score some great tries. At times, yes, it does mean that we don't see that really brutal forward rugby anymore that we used to see. A lot less scrums. But that's what rugby's pushing. But I didn't even mention the scrums in this game, guys. Every scrum, the Springboks demolished the Wallabies. The Wallabies didn't even look a little up to scratch versus the Springboks in the scrums. They were trying, the Wallabies was just spinning that ball in as quick. The scrum halves was trying to spin that ball in so quickly to just get it out because they had no chance in the scrums. They weren't even competing in the scrums, really. So Springboks actually overall just dominating the Wallabies. There's no other way to put it. And that really, you know, after this game, you kind of want to say, okay, what does that mean? Does it mean the Springboks are really good, or does it mean the Wallabies aren't really that great? Now, we know the Wallabies are still in a building phase and they're not great, but I don't know if the Springboks is that much in a building phase. They obviously have young guys coming in, and you have to call it a building phase, but I think they're ahead of some of these other teams at the moment in their building phases. And I still don't think we can read too much out of this game, because the Wallabies will hit back in the next one, and I can't see them play this poorly. The next one will tell us a lot, but then also the big one will come when the All Blacks play the Springboks, because that's the one where I want to really see, is the Springboks really now just at a different level, and they're really starting to just be that little bit ahead of the rest in their, you know, building phase and their new types of play and their new players coming in? Or is it just that the Wallabies are not really, you know, at that standard? But I can tell you, you know, the way that Wales played against the Wallabies and the way the Springboks are playing against them, it's two different types of games. The Springboks just look too strong. It looked like really like they were playing Japan or something. It was just too much, to be honest. And I think all of you will agree with that. Now, guys, you know, don't just have a watch out for my next one. My next one is obviously the All Blacks one, another big one. It's quite a shocker. I don't want to say too much about it. I'll be reacting to those highlights because it is something that we need to have a closer look at. And that'll be coming up. Check it out. And thanks for watching, man. And if you guys enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button below. And I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.